I am Artis Pabriks. I'm Doctor of Political Science, previous Minister of Foreign Affairs and Defense. And at this moment, I am Director of think tank named Northern Europe Policy Center. We believe, and it's quite broadly shared here, that Russia is preparing for the next conflict. In which place, in which way, in what time, it's difficult to predict. But one thing we know for very clear, and let's not make a mistake here. If somebody will cross our border, in this case, Latvian border or Estonian border or Lithuanian border, because of our very bitter historic experience where we lost 30% of our population because of Russian invasion in last century, we are going to shoot immediately to kill. We have no other chance. We have nowhere to retreat. Even if we will be overtaken by maximum force from the larger neighbor, we will fight to the end. This is the answer from our side.
Start us off by setting the scene for us right now. How are things in Latvia right now? What are folks thinking about?
There are several thoughts on the minds of public here in Latvia, or in Baltic countries, or actually in the whole region, which is Northern Eastern Europe. So the first issue, what we are very much concerned, is about Russian invasion in Ukraine, and not only how this invasion continues, but also how this invasion ends. And for us, it is highly important, and I believe that this is also highly important for whole European continent, and actually it is important also globally, because many other countries, including countries in Asia, are watching us. So for us, it is important, does this war end with possibility for sustainable peace? And with sustainable peace, we do understand a just peace, not the peace which is enforced on victim, which in this case is Ukraine. And at this moment, this question is not clear, because we could see quite a bit of pressure extended from United States over Ukraine, but Ukraine is a victim, and we could not see even a similar pressure going in the direction of Moscow, which is aggressor. Now, looking from this perspective, if Russia is allowed to win or pretend globally that they won, this will first of all very much weaken Northern Alliance, which is NATO, because that will diminish the trust into defense. It will invite Russia to continue its aggressive hybrid warfare against other neighbors, which we could not exclude to be Baltic countries, Finland, Poland, Romania, just name it, because they are on the path of the war, with all the war machine and economy working like this. So this is one of priorities for us, because we believe that if Ukraine is somehow forced to agree on unjust peace, and Russia is favored here, then it will encourage also other parts in the world to start aggressive policies, also in Asia, for instance. Secondly, we are also very much concerned that we here in the Northern Eastern European corner, we are put in the same box as all Europeans. Because I must remind here to our allies and friends, Americans, Europe is not a country. Number one, Europe is not a European Union, number two. And once there are, for instance, coming, I would say, justified critics from United States side and White House side that Europeans are not investing enough of their resources in their defense, we here in the Baltic countries, in Latvia, in Finland, in Poland, we fully subscribe to this analysis. But we here in this region, we are dedicated to spend for our security and defense as much as needed. In the upcoming year, for instance, Latvian spending will be even 5% of our GDP. The same for neighboring Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, and also Finland is going up. So now, when there are complaints in NATO and in Washington about Europeans not taking security seriously, it is to us something like once we speak about America, then we speak equally about Colombia, Mexico, Panama, Canada, and US, because it's also Americas or America, and Europe here is consisting of number of countries. So we would be extremely pleased if White House and Washington and Congress and US people, Americans, they would simply say, look, this and this country, you are allies, you are parts of NATO, please do your job. But simply to say that Europeans are not doing the job, it's not fair to us, especially because we are the ones which will be paying the price if the next war or conflict will come, because we are bordering Russia, and Russia is basically the only aggressor here. So those countries in Europe which are not paying enough for security, they are not having the same assessment of security threats, and so they are not the ones also who will pay the price for dinner. It's us who are doing our homework and always have been doing our homework. And the second issue, what we heard also in Munich Security Conference, where GD Vance was bashing Europeans about migration and etc. Look, here in this region, in the Baltic countries and in Poland, we are fighting hybrid migrant attacks organized by Russia and Belarus for the last 3 years. We keep our border closed. And again, we are not the ones who should be blamed, but we are put in the same pot simply because we are in European continent. So this is what makes us to worry that these nuances, which are extremely important, are not seen at this moment in the United States, and that United States are turning more inwards or more to Pacific, and thus they are actually maybe, and this is a question, maybe willing to give up the allies in Europe who are the most consistent and most trustful allies like us, while simply imagining that they are punishing somebody else. So we simply don't feel to be guilty for some wrong policies here.
That's a lot, and that is, I think, spot on, as we say. I think you're absolutely correct in everything you said. Not that what my opinion is, not that it makes a difference, but to a couple of things, I'd like to ask you a few questions based on what you said. But the first thing I'd like to say, though, is that in terms of people going to Europe and bashing Europe, and in terms of people making blanket statements about Europe and not looking at Europe as the individual states that it is a mistake. And it is, I think, the product of politicians who really don't do their homework, don't really know what it is they should know, and others who may be just trying to make a statement. I mean, it's flawed, and it will probably come back to haunt them later, but I think that that's what's happening. But to get back to the discussion, do you think Russia is preparing itself for another attack, another assault on another country, or are they sort of positioning themselves, trying to return to the global stage as the big bad bear again?
We believe, and it's quite broadly shared here, that Russia is preparing for the next conflict. In which place, in which way, in what time, it's difficult to predict, because for centuries, actually, not just for decades, Russia have been always seeing the West, and in this case, it is Europe, because we are to the west from Russia, as opponent and enemy. That is a historical fact. If we look backwards already to the European history of beginning of 16th century, whenever Russia was militarily strong, it was trying to expand. And they were, of course, using, and I would say that they are using these arguments and to justify their expansion in very smart way. For instance, currently in the last decades, it was always argued that, look, why did NATO expand? Namely, why did Russian neighboring countries decided freely to join the alliance of NATO? But they were never asking, actually, why did they decide so? They decided to join NATO because they have been historically always afraid that they simply will be punished and invaded like Ukraine now, with all the atrocities against civilians and children what we see now. So I think if Moscow would be really willing to establish not only long-standing peace, but to have a relationship which is based on mutual respect and collaboration, that no neighboring country actually would be willing to join NATO and spend extra money on defense. Because look, for instance, to such countries as Sweden and Finland. Even during the Cold War, for some reason, they were not joining this alliance. But now, after Russia invaded Ukraine, their society suddenly decided, okay, now it's time even we have to join North Atlantic Alliance because we don't feel safe anymore. So it's not only about Baltic countries where sometimes, people say, okay, you are these small countries which kind of have a bad history with Russian invasion. You have some kind of prejudice, but in general, Russia is a fine country and they don't wish anything bad to their neighbors. No, this is not true. Whenever there is a chance, the West is classical opponent, and unfortunately, Russia never have been democratic country based on the same justice principles like European countries because they developed according to different pattern. And this is normal. It's not bad or right. It's simply developed differently. So they are not classical European country. And unfortunately, they are ruled now by authoritarian, aggressive military leaders, which see that they can legitimize their power by expanding against their neighbors. So whenever there will be a wish and capability, they will use this capability.
And as you look at the current makeup of NATO and the current situation that NATO and the European Union are in, which is basically wondering just what the heck is happening in the US under President Donald Trump, and with all of these changes with the threats and the tariffs and the lecturing and all of that. And I don't really have to ask you, whether you trust the US still, because I kind of already know the answer to that, but I want to
Hmm.
hear what you have to say about that just the same.
Well, first of all, we are realists here in the region because we cannot be different because security for us and Russian threat for us is not something theoretical, which we can discuss in books or on YouTube channels. For us, it is of existential nature. It is of existential threat, either to be alive and free or to be simply dead. So this is why we have no simply this pleasure and luxury to territorize about that. Now, if we look to what is happening from our perspective in Transatlantic Alliance, first of all, again, I would like to say United States and all the presidents, including President Trump, are totally correct to demand Western Europeans, and I'm stressing here Western Europeans, finally to take security seriously, because we have been asking from them just the same for decades from our region, because we need this backup from the Western Europe. So this part is correct. But on the other hand, we are also very much concerned that by threatening with tariffs, with, let's say, different, language and etc., your closest allies globally, and for United States, Europe is a closest ally. just like for us, United States is the closest ally. I think this is diminishing this mutual trust, just like between people. And that makes our public and our society simply to consider and ask, look, if really bad things happen at our border, can we rely again on our allies or not? And we cannot answer this question. And this is not a question where we would like to hear just words. We would like to see and hear actions. And from that perspective, I would say that upcoming NATO summit in June is highly important because one thing is to threaten, for instance, Western Europeans about United States military withdrawal, but here in Northern Eastern Europe, we even did not have a permanent US bases. They have been just rotational. So what will happen to this region? And if United States leaves, these countries which are bordering Russia, which are countering Russian threat, countering hybrid attacks like migration, and spending 5% on their defense, and if United States is abolishing these countries just because they see Europe as some kind of a free riding continent, which is not true, then I think this is the best hope what Putin and Russia would like to see. And they would like to see not only death of Ukraine fundamentally, but they want to see that NATO as an alliance is destroyed. And unfortunately, such kind of rhetorics very much are appreciated in Kremlin at this moment.
If Russia decided to attack some NATO country tomorrow, how is NATO prepared to handle that? Can NATO deal with that from your perspective?
Well, again, NATO consists of various and different countries. And if we read NATO's fifth article, it is actually not telling directly that from the first second of attack, each and every member is joining with maximum force to defend the allied state. No, it's written actually that they will consider how much they can help, how it will do, and which means that we have to negotiate in our understanding now with all the member states again how they will be able to perform with their capabilities. But one thing we know for very clear, and let's not make a mistake here. If somebody will cross our border, in this case, Latvian border or Estonian border or Lithuanian border, because of our very bitter historic experience where we lost 30% of our population because of Russian invasion in last century, we are going to shoot immediately to kill. We have no other chance. We have nowhere to retreat. Even if we will be overtaken by maximum force from the larger neighbor, we will fight to the end. This is the answer from our side. And we very much hope that our allies will stand with us in the same way.
Well, Minister Pabriks, I have always known you to be very forthright and very forthcoming, and you don't hold back the truth. And you've, again, done that, and I thank you for that. I want to ask, before we end this interview, as you look at I suppose, the future for Latvia, and against the backdrop of, their problems with Russia and problems with the economy and, because of U.S. tariffs and other things, there's also a lot of uncertainty about the future. There's, China and other things, the world order, to put it, I guess, bluntly. When you look at Latvia's future, what do you see? How do you see that country being led? How do you see, what direction do you see that country heading in the future?
Well, we don't have a choice here. We know what does it mean to be a slave. We know what does it mean to be occupied by another country, which means we know the price of freedom and independence. So we will do everything what is needed to preserve our freedom and also to make our economy work, and of course work on our welfare, because every person here, I think every person in the globe, they simply want to be free and prosperous, and this is what we want. And I also would like to say that no matter what we are hearing in news and which are coming either from United States or from other countries, our partnership and friendship with United States have been always very deep. So we very much hope that this friendship and partnership will continue despite of some clouds in the sky above us, because I don't think that we can erase our perfect and good past, let's say, relationship just so easily. So I hope that simply these things will remain, because one thing is very clear. It's not only about Latvia or Baltic countries or Europe. I here would like to use for Americans the quote of one of your own great thinkers and politicians, Benjamin Franklin. And I think he was telling very clearly, either we hang together or we will all hang separately.
Well, Dr. Pabriks, thank you. That is a perfect way to end this conversation. Thank you for the deep introspection and communication of some very important points and addressing some key issues as we looked at the world as it stands today, with Russia being the aggressive force that it is, and the world, I guess, being in a bit of disarray because of this new president we have in the U.S. Indeed, the U.S. is in a bit of disarray right now as well. But thank you for taking time to chat with us, and we look forward to engaging with you again in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And all the best. Good luck.